exactly what I put on this table. My wallet was right here and now it's gone. Okay. You were the only one who came by. Don't tell me you didn't see it.
Ma'am, I didn't touch your wallet. I cleared the empty plates, that's all.
That's not true. You're the only person close enough. I want it back right now.
I understand you're upset, but I didn't take anything.
I don't believe you.
For Maya Campbell, working a shift at the diner was only a way to reach her goal, saving up for nursing school fees. But when Jean Collins misplaced her wallet, she didn't try to find it. She searched for someone to fault. She boxed Maya in, claimed she stole it, and demanded punishment. She had no clue that the diner's security cameras were moments away from showing that the only person who ever touched that wallet was Jean herself. What you just saw was a classic case of profiling. A customer assuming that because her server was black, she must be a thief. You saw the accusation. Now we're going to tell you the full story and reveal the humiliating moment when the truth was found sitting on a restroom sink. If you believe workers deserve respect, hit that subscribe button. Maya Campbell was 22 years old and tired in a way that went deeper than one shift or even 1 week. It was the kind of tired that builds up when you're working 40 hours at a restaurant while taking 16 credit hours of nursing prerequisites. When your alarm goes off at 5:00 in the morning for an 8:00 a.m. anatomy lab and doesn't stop until you're closing out your last table at 11:00 p.m. But Maya didn't complain. She couldn't afford to. Every dollar she made in tips went into a dedicated savings account labeled tuition on her banking app. She was 3 semesters away from applying to the nursing program at Virginia Commonwealth University, and she'd watched too many of her friends drown in student debt to make that same mistake. So she smiled through the exhaustion, memorized orders without writing them down, and treated even the rudest customers with patience she had to create from nothing every single day. The restaurant where Maya worked wasn't fancy. It was the kind of place that served breakfast all day, had laminated menus with too many options, and attracted a reliable crowd of regulars who knew exactly which booth they wanted before they walked through the door. The decor hadn't been updated since the 90s. Floral wallpaper borders, wooden tables with decades of scratches hidden under thick varnish, and those prefab landscape paintings that came from a restaurant supply warehouse. But it was clean. The food was consistent, and the owner actually cared about his staff, which made it better than a lot of places Maya could have ended up. On this particular evening in Richmond, the dinner rush had come and gone. It was that quiet period around 8:00 when most of the families had left and the late-night crowd hadn't arrived yet. Maya had maybe 5 tables in her section, none of them demanding much attention. She was in that comfortable rhythm where she could almost operate on autopilot, refill the coffee at table 6, drop the check at table 3, clear the appetizer plates from table 9. Her feet hurt, but they always hurt by this point in a shift. She'd long ago accepted that as the baseline condition of her existence. Then Jean Collins walked in. Maya recognized her immediately and her heart sank just a little. Jean was what the servers called a regular problem. She came in every few weeks, always sat in the same area, and always found something to complain about. The coffee was too cold or too hot. The eggs were too runny or too firm. The music was too loud. She had that particular energy of someone who had discovered that complaining got results and had built an entire personality around it. She wasn't the worst customer Maya had ever dealt with. She tipped adequately if grudgingly, but she required a level of emotional labor that was exhausting on a night when Maya was already running on fumes. The hostess seated Jean at table 12 right in Maya's section. Mia took a breath, fixed her smile, and approached with a menu and water glass. "Good evening, welcome in. Can I start you off with something to drink besides water?" Jean barely looked up from her phone. "Diet Coke and I'm ready to order." No pleasantries, no recognition that Maya was a person providing a service, just commands. Maya took the order, a Cobb salad with about 7 changes, and entered it. When she brought the Diet Coke, Jean complained it didn't have enough ice. When she brought the salad, Jean said the ranch dressing looked different than usual. Maya handled it all with practice, calm, the way she'd learned to handle everything in this job. You don't take it personally, you don't let it show on your face. You just do your job and get through the shift. About 20 minutes into Jean's meal, Maya noticed she'd gotten up and headed toward the restrooms at the back of the restaurant. This was normal. People went to the bathroom. Maya took the chance to check on her other tables, refill some drinks, clear some plates. When she returned past table 12, she saw that Jean had left her napkin on the table in that careless way people do when they're coming back. So Maya knew not to clear everything yet. But there were some empty appetizer plates from earlier that could be removed. So she stacked them efficiently and took them back to the dish station. The security camera mounted on the wall captured all of this in that grainy, slightly fish-eyed way that restaurant cameras do. The time stamp in the corner read 8:17 p.m. Maya can be seen moving toward the table, her motions quick and professional, gathering the dirty dishes, wiping down the cleared area with her bar towel, and walking away. Her hands never reach where a wallet might be. She doesn't hesitate or glance around nervously. She's just doing her job like she's done it 1,000 times before. Jean returned from the restroom a few minutes later. Maya watched from across the dining room as she slid back into her booth, picked up her fork, and took another bite of her salad. Everything looked normal. Maya moved on to serve a new table that had just been seated, taking their drink orders and trying to figure in her head how many more hours until she could go home and collapse. Then she heard her name, not politely, urgently, with a sharp edge of accusation. "Excuse me, waitress, I need you over here right now." Maya turned and saw Jean standing next to her booth, and something about her stance made Maya's stomach tight. Jean wasn't sitting down anymore. She stood in the middle of the dining room, arms crossed, and her face wore that tense, angry look that Maya had seen before on customers who were about to make her night much harder. Maya approached carefully, keeping her voice steady. "Is everything okay with your meal?" "No, everything is not okay." Jean's voice was loud enough that people at nearby tables started to glance over. "My wallet is missing." Maya felt a cold spike of panic, but she kept her face calm. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Where did you last see it?" "I know exactly where I last saw it." Jean's eyes locked onto Maya's, and there was something in her stare that Maya recognized immediately. A conclusion already made, a judgment already decided. It was right here on this table, and now it's gone. The security camera caught the moment perfectly. Jean standing aggressively close to Maya in the middle of the dining room. Maya stood still, hands folded politely in front of her, holding nothing, touching nothing, looking calm but concerned. Jean with her arms crossed, radiating hostility like heat rising off asphalt. "I know exactly what I put on this table. My wallet was right here and now it's gone." Maya could feel other customers watching, could feel their attention like a heavy weight. She kept her voice quiet, respectful, professional. "I understand that's upsetting. Let me help you look for it." Sometimes things fall off the seat, or Jean cut her off. "You were the only one who came by, don't tell me you didn't see it." There it was, the accusation hanging between them, not fully spoken but entirely clear. Maya felt her face grow hot, felt that familiar mix of anger and fear that comes with being blamed for something you didn't do. But she forced herself to stay calm. Reacting emotionally would only make it worse. "Ma'am, I didn't touch your wallet. I cleared the empty plates, that's all." "That's not true." Jean's voice got louder. "You're the only person close enough. I want it back right now." Other diners weren't even pretending not to watch anymore. Maya could see them looking, could feel their judgment, trying to decide who to believe, the angry white customer or the young black server. She wanted to scream. She wanted to walk out. She wanted to demand that Jean check her own purse, her own pockets, the booth cushions, literally anywhere else before assuming that Maya had taken something from her. But she couldn't do any of that because she needed this job, needed the money, needed to get through this moment without making it worse. "I understand you're upset, but I didn't take anything." Jean leaned in closer, her voice dropping to something that was almost worse than yelling, cold, sure, full of contempt. "I don't believe you." Those 4 words carried the weight of every assumption Jean had ever made about people who looked like Maya. Not, "I lost my wallet and I'm frustrated." Not, "I can't find it and I'm worried." Just, "I don't believe you." A flat denial of Maya's word, her character, her humanity. In Jean's mind, the idea that she herself had misplaced her wallet was less likely than the assumption that her black waitress had stolen it. Maya felt something crack inside her calm. Her voice came out quieter, firmer. "I'm telling you the truth. Then you won't mind being searched." Jean said it like a challenge, like she had just played a winning card. "If you didn't take it, you have nothing to hide." Maya's hand began shaking. This was spiraling. This was becoming exactly the kind of situation she'd always feared. A false accusation that could follow her, that could appear on some record and ruin her chances of getting into nursing school. Because who wants a nurse with a theft claim in their past? Even if she was innocent, even if she could prove it, the mark of the accusation might never completely go away. "I'm not." Maya started, but Jean was already talking over her. "I want the police called. I want her searched. I want my wallet back." Each sentence grew louder, more demanding. People were definitely staring now. Some were probably recording on their phones. This was turning into a scene, the kind that ends up on social media with a caption about crazy Karen or racist customers, and Maya would be in the middle of it, humiliated and exposed. That's when the manager appeared. His name was Derek, and he'd been running this restaurant for nearly a decade. He was a stocky man in his 40s with graying hair and a calm presence that came from handling every type of restaurant crisis imaginable. He'd been in the back doing inventory when he heard the noise, and he stepped into the dining room with his hands visible and voice intentionally soothing. "Folks, let's all take a breath here. Ma'am, I'm the manager. Why don't you tell me what's happening?" Jean shifted her anger toward him, giving Maya a moment to step back. "What's happening is that your employee stole my wallet. It was on my table. She cleared my plates and now it's gone. I want her searched and I want the police called." The manager looked at Maya. "Did you clear this table?" "Yes," Maya said quietly. "I cleared the empty plates. I didn't see a wallet and I didn't take anything." The manager nodded slowly, then turned back to Jean. "Okay, here's what we'll do. I'm not going to search my employee based on an accusation without proof, but I will check our security cameras, which cover the whole dining room. If she took your wallet, it'll show on video." "Fair." Jean paused, clearly wanting to argue, but the fairness of the offer trapped her. "Fine, but I want to see the footage." "Absolutely, follow me to the office." Maya felt a wave of relief so strong she thought her knees might give out. The cameras, of course. She'd been so caught up in the panic of being accused that she forgot about them. They would show the truth. They would prove she did nothing wrong. The 3 of them walked to the small office behind the kitchen. The manager, Jean, and Maya. The manager pulled up the security footage on the computer, scrolling back to around the time Jean said she'd lost her wallet. The video quality wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough. Clear enough to show Maya walking to table 12. Clear enough to show her collecting the empty. Clear enough to show that her hands never reached anywhere near where a wallet would be sitting. The manager played it twice. Jean watched in silence, arms still crossed, her expression becoming more pinched. As you can see, the manager said carefully, Maya cleared some dishes, but she didn't take anything else from your table. Now let's go back a bit and see when you got up to go to the restroom. He rewound the footage. There the timestamp read 8:14 p.m. Jean standing up from her booth. And there, clearly in her right hand as she walked toward the back of the restaurant, was a small rectangular object, her wallet. The manager paused the video. Ma'am, that's your wallet in your hand. Jean squinted at the screen. That could be my phone. Let's keep watching. The manager let the video continue. Jean disappeared down the hallway toward the restrooms. A minute passed, 2 minutes, then Jean came back from the hallway and returned to her table. Her hands were empty. The manager paused the video again. You went into the restroom with your wallet. You came out without it. He stood up. I'll be right back. He left the office. Maya and Jean stood in tense silence, avoiding each other's gaze. Maya's heart was racing, adrenaline still pumping through her veins even though the danger was over. She wanted to say something sharp, something that would make Jean realize the harm she had almost caused, but the words wouldn't come. She just felt drained and trembling. The manager returned in less than a minute. In his hand was a brown leather wallet, slightly worn with a keychain charm hanging from the zipper. He held it out to Jean. You left it by the sink, ma'am. The silence that followed was heavy. Jean took the wallet, her face shifting through emotions, surprise, embarrassment, and then instead of an apology, Maya was bracing for something defensive and annoyed. Well, how was I supposed to know? It wasn't where I thought it was. You accused my employee of stealing. The manager's voice stayed calm, but there was steel underneath now. You demanded she be searched. You threatened to call the police. You did all of that without checking the most obvious place where you had actually been. I made a mistake. You made an accusation against an employee who has worked here for 2 years without a single complaint. The manager turned to Maya. Maya, I apologize that you had to go through that. Why don't you take your break? I need to finish speaking with this customer. Maya nodded and left the office on legs that felt shaky. She could hear the manager's voice continuing firm and unyielding as she walked away. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to settle your bill and leave, and I have to inform you that you are no longer welcome at this restaurant. What? You're banning me? I don't tolerate harassment of my staff. What you did tonight was unacceptable. Maya didn't hear the rest. She went to the break room and sat on the old couch they kept back there, her hands still trembling. She thought about how close she had come to disaster. If they didn't have cameras, if the manager had believed Jean over her, if she'd been searched in front of the whole restaurant based only on an accusation and the color of her skin. The next day, Maya came in for her shift to find that the story had taken on a life of its own. One of the other customers had recorded part of the confrontation and posted it online. The video was grainy and the sound wasn't great, but it captured enough. Jean's aggressive stance, her raised voice, Maya's quiet dignity, and then the triumphant update in the comments when the person who posted it added, "Update. Manager checked the cameras. The Karen left her wallet in the bathroom. She got banned for life." The video went viral in that way that restaurant drama sometimes does. Thousands of shares, millions of views, endless comments analyzing every second of the interaction. Some praised the manager for standing up for his employee. Some shared their own stories of being falsely accused at work. Some found Jean's social media and filled her comments with criticism until she locked her accounts. It became a moment, one of those internet justice stories where the bad person gets their comeuppance and everyone feels briefly that fairness exists in the world. Maya's life changed in small ways. The restaurant's owner gave her a bonus and a raise. Strangers sent money through the restaurant's Venmo, marking it for Maya with messages of support. Local news picked up the story. For a few weeks she was semi-famous in Richmond, recognized on the street by people who wanted to tell her they were glad she was okay. But what stayed with Maya long after the attention faded was the memory of that moment when Jean looked at her and said, "I don't believe you." The casual certainty of it, the way Jean's mind had filled in a gap in her memory, not with "I must have misplaced it," but with "the black girl must have taken it." That's what prejudice does. It gives easy answers to complicated questions. Answers that always seem to point at the same people. Maya thought about it during her anatomy lectures, learning about the amygdala and fear responses, about how the brain makes shortcuts to process information fast. She understood the neuroscience of bias, how pattern recognition could turn into pattern assumption, how fear and stereotype could pretend to be intuition. But understanding it didn't make it hurt less. Jean Collins vanished from public view after the incident. Her social media went dark. She stopped going to any of the restaurants in the area, according to the server gossip network that stretched across the city. Maya never heard from her directly. No apology, no recognition of the harm done. Just silence, as if disappearing could erase what she had tried to do. But the security footage stayed. The manager kept it as part of training for new hires, using it as an example of why the restaurant's policy was to always check evidence before acting on accusations. "We protect our people," he told every new server. "We don't throw them under the bus for customers. We verify first." Maya eventually got into the nursing program at VCU. She kept working at the restaurant part-time, and customers sometimes recognized her from the video and asked if she was that waitress. She learned to handle those conversations politely. She wasn't interested in being defined by someone else's mistake, someone else's prejudice, someone else's viral moment. What she took from that night wasn't bitterness, though she could have been justified in feeling it. It was clarity. She'd always known that certain people saw her as guilty before proven innocent, that her presence in some spaces demanded constant justification. But experiencing it so directly, so publicly, so completely changed something. It made her more determined to succeed, to build a life where she had more control to protect herself, to create spaces where people like her didn't have to prove their innocence before being treated with basic dignity. Years later, when Maya was working in a hospital as a registered nurse, she would sometimes think about that night, about Jean's crossed arms and certain tone, about the manager's steady insistence on evidence, about the wallet resting on a restroom sink exactly where Jean had left it in her own distracted care. She thought about how quickly people fill the gaps in memory with stories, and how those stories almost always follow the grooves of existing bias. The truth was simple. Jean had been careless. She'd gone to the restroom with her wallet, set it down while washing her hands, and walked away without it. A normal human mistake. But instead of accepting that she'd made a normal mistake, she looked for someone to blame. And the person she chose to blame was the one who matched her pre-existing assumptions about who steals, who can't be trusted, who must be lying when they claim innocence. The cameras didn't just prove Maya's innocence. They showed how prejudice works, how a forgotten wallet becomes theft, how a black server becomes a suspect, how memory reshapes itself to fit bias. Jean had been so certain, so completely sure that Maya had taken her wallet that she was ready to demand a search, to call the police, to potentially ruin a young woman's future. And she had been wrong on every single point. The satisfaction of that being revealed was real, but it was also hollow. Because for every viral video where the truth comes out and justice is served, there are countless other moments with no cameras, no manager defending their staff, no proof to show innocence. There are moments where the accusation sticks, where the benefit of the doubt goes to the accuser, where someone loses their job or reputation based only on another person's certainty that they must be guilty. Maya kept her dignity that night because she had to, because losing her composure would have made everything worse. But she shouldn't have had to. That's what stayed with her. Not just that she had been falsely accused, but that she had to respond to it with perfect professionalism, while Jean got to be angry, careless, wrong, and still leave thinking she was the victim of an honest mistake. The story ended well for Maya. She got justice, vindication, support. But it ended well because of circumstances, the cameras, the manager, the viral video. It ended well because she got lucky. And that's the part that haunts her sometimes, even years later, knowing her dignity, her future, her innocence, all depended on being in a restaurant with working security cameras and a manager who chose to check them before deciding who to believe.